If you're going to have steak, roast beef, or any other rich red meat dish, I highly recommend this beef dripping sauce. What's beef dripping? Some places call it beef tallow, but essentially it's the fat that's rendered out of beef. This is how they sell it in the UK. This is the major brand you'll find in all the supermarkets, along with all the other butters and fats. Trust me, it's there. Very, very easy to buy, very, very cheap. But this is what makes this sauce super luscious and delicious. Now, if for some reason you can't get beef dripping, it's kind of okay. Obviously, it won't then be a beef dripping sauce. Everything else I'm going to show you will make a delicious sauce. Just replace it with a different fat, like butter, for example. But beef dripping's on the name, so let's do a beef dripping sauce. Quickly, I'll whiz round the ingredients. So we're going to need our beef dripping, plus we'll need a little bit of diced beef. Any old cheap little stringy cut of beef will do. That's just going to help us add some beef flavour. We will need a couple of shallots, or small onions if you can't find shallots. A red onion will do. A couple of bits of garlic, some various liquids in the form of port, red wine and red wine vinegar to taste later on, a small amount of star anise, about a half. We're going to add some beef stock as the main part of the liquid in the dish, a little bit of sugar for balance later on, and xanthan gum for thickening it later. But don't panic if that word xanthan scares you. We'll talk more about that later and what you can substitute it with if that all seems a bit scary. So a few ingredients, but the majority of this is going to be very easy, all done in one pan. And while we're talking about pans, I thoroughly recommend you do it in a shallow but wide pan. A large amount of this recipe time is spent reducing it. So the greater surface area you have, the quicker it's going to reduce. And that's just going to make your life a lot simpler. So we start by taking our 2 shallots and dicing them finely. As I said, you can use a red onion or maybe half a normal onion in there. Shallots just have that lovely sweet flavour that works really well. Then we're going to crush a couple of cloves of garlic and use about 50 grams of beef dripping. Pop about a third of that beef dripping in the pan. Add your onions, garlic and some of those offcuts of beef. You don't need very much, but this cheap beef, like a flank or chuck or skirt, anything that would go in stewing or casseroling is perfect for this. There's a star anise in there as well. Once the liquid goes in, take the star anise out. Then we're going to add our boozes, our red wine and our port. Give that all a good stir and make sure it's reduced by about half. Add in the rest of the beef dripping. And then add half a litre of beef stock. Get the temperature up really high and boil it furiously. So while that cooks away in the background, let me tell you a little bit about this sauce. I would love to claim that this is a Big Spud original, and it sort of is, but I've actually completely taken inspiration from the restaurant chain Miller & Carter. This isn't authentic or their recipe as far as I'm aware. I really enjoyed it and I wanted to make it myself at home. Miller & Carter is a chain of steakhouse restaurants. There's about 100 in the UK, there or thereabouts. Founded by William and Frederick Miller in 2003. The brothers initially opened a restaurant in Birmingham and then from there have spread out throughout the country. Now, this is not a sponsored post, I just happen to really like going there. My favourite steakhouse, Chop Block in Chelmsford, is sadly no more and I miss it terribly. But Miller & Carter will do. The main thing, they have a wide menu, but the main thing you order is the steak experience, which is a steak with an onion loaf, with some fries, with a wedge salad, and your choice of sauce. And there's lots in there, but I really like the beef dripping sauce. So I really wanted to have this at home. And that's why I chose to try and unpick this recipe. And I've made it quite a few times. I even tweeted Miller & Carter about it, and their Twitter account seemed to think it was good. The beef dripping sauce should have a lip-smacking quality because the sauce is going to make you salivate because of that beef richy flavour. But what's really important is to balance it. And that's where red wine vinegar comes in. Just at the end, if you think it's a bit rich, we can add literally a couple of drops of red wine vinegar just to turn it back the other way, or possibly adding a little bit of sugar Again, that all depends on what mood your beef is in, what mood your stock is in, just to get that balance just right. Just adding a tiny bit at a time. Now, it's not a diet food. You know, it's got at least 50 grams of beef dripping in it, plus whatever else has leached out of the cheap sinewy cut of beef that I've used. Now, when it comes to thickening it, there are many different ways you can do it. You can do monte au beurre, where you take butter and flour paste and mix it in. You can make a corn flour slurry, cornstarch and water mixed together and just add it at the last minute. All these work great. I personally really like xanthan gum, which is nowhere near as alien as it sounds. The ingredients are amusing. The ingredients are xanthan gum. It is gluten-free, so good for those of you trying to get away from that. It can be used to make bread recipes, and it really is available in more places than you think. Some supermarkets will carry it, as will health food shops, your Holland and Barrett's and those kind of places. Grape Tree, is that what they're called? Yes, Grape Tree. And it's really good, of all things, in ice cream. I'm going to link you to Polar Ice Creamery up here, a really great channel about making ice cream at home. A really smart guy, and he'll take you through how xanthan gum works in ice cream. If you don't have xanthan gum, as I said, there's lots of other ways you can thicken it. Or just have it as is. It'll just be a bit looser and a bit more of a pouring sauce than it will be a lovely coating gravy. And you need to be really sparing with this. Just like a quarter of a teaspoon is all you need to thicken your sauce. And you add that at the last minute, and it will help stabilise it and keep it a beautiful consistency. After 10 to 20 minutes of furious bubbling, that should have reduced quite severely. You want it to get it down by at least half, if not 2/3. You can see that in there. This is where you want to taste it, adjusting it with a couple of drops, and I do mean a couple of drops of red wine vinegar if you need some sharpness, some brightness, any extra salt or pepper, or a little bit of sugar. You just got to taste it and think about it and really think, is it balanced? Is it sweet? Is it sharp? Is it salty? And season to taste. Just keep adding more of your seasonings and tasting, because now we've done all of our reducing, we've added our seasoning. This is pretty much how the sauce is going to taste. All that's going to be left is to strain it off and thicken it. Once you're happy with the flavour, take it off the heat and strain it off. You could technically keep those solids, they're perfectly edible. I might just snack on them, but I didn't tell you that. Return the strained liquid back to the bowl and add 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum. Put the heat back on and make sure you're whisking it whilst adding it to disperse it as quickly as possible. If you allow it to settle, it'll clump together in blocks. Keep whisking over the heat, and after about 30 seconds to a minute, your sauce will have started to thicken and become more of a coating sauce than a pouring sauce. So there's our finished sauce. About 200 mils it's made as. 500 mils of stock, another 100 of booze, reduced down to about 200. You can see there it's thick, it's glossy, it's rich, it's absolutely delicious. Oh, that is so good. It is really tasty. It's going to accentuate anything you've got beefy. Little sweet alcoholic note in the background. The stir anise is just there, just the way I like it. You could leave it in if you want a more pronounced flavour. And the things you do for YouTube, I wouldn't usually pop it into a glass jug, but just makes life a little bit easier to show you on camera. But I hope that was interesting. If that's something you like the look of, hit the like button for me now. That'll tell YouTube that this is a good recipe and one worth trying. And I'm just going to now try and resist drinking this myself.